Welcome to the stream. This is Live Free or Die Bard. I'm your host, Jinx. Welcome to those of you in the chat. Welcome back. This is episode 17, On the Road Again. Make sure I have my settings all correct here. Live Free or Die Bard, we are making a custom Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition campaign from scratch. This week we are working on our Adventure 2, where we are leaving our main town and we are heading off adventuring on a journey themed around the musical puns of Journey and other bands. So feel free to participate in the chat if you haven't been with us before. Anything that you say in the chat I will try and incorporate in some way into the game when possible, and we will make it happen and add it to our adventuring world, fantasy world. Lots of musical puns. Let's go over what we've done up to this point. We've got them. We've got an introduction. We've got 6 character archetypes that we are writing towards, and you can check them out on our website on Obsidian Portal. That's livefreeorddiebard.obsidianportal.com, right up there on your screen. And go look at all that stuff in detail. Our Adventure 1 had a little bit of pretty much everything. We had a little bit of a dungeon, we had a mystery, we had some role-playing. There's a love triangle, there's escape, daring do, and a little bit of combat and exploration. So Adventure 2 is going to be venturing outside of the town and seeing what there is to see in the region outside of Paradise City, and making some new contacts and finding out some new information. Let's see. I did want to make a brief mention of our holiday schedule, upcoming holiday schedule. I've got this stream, one more stream next week, and then we go on our 2-week break. So we have our Tuesday night show is Getting Started with Style with Kalak. He's teaching you how to customize your Obsidian Portal pages with CSS, which is a feature you get with an Ascendant membership. And he is streaming at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, which is GMT -5. So he'll be here on Tuesday night showing you how to code stuff and make your pages really nice. And then I'll be back next Thursday, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we'll do one more stream, and then we'll have a 2-week hiatus for the holidays, and then we'll be back in January. So that's that. Speaking of holidays, if you're looking for gifts, a gift membership is a possibility for Obsidian Portal. If you have a GM or a Dungeon Master that needs it, let me show you here. You go up to this upper left-hand corner where your profile is. You're welcome. And you go down to the Gift Ascendant tab in the drop-down menu, and basically all you need to do is put in your recipient's username, and you can gift them a membership monthly or yearly. Get all the cool features of Obsidian Portal. It's a great little extra if you need something last minute for your GMs. It is the 12th of December, so it might be too late for some of those deliveries to get in. If you haven't crafted something already, just saying, it's a good backup. Ascendant membership. You can check it out. Alright, let's get some inspiration for our overland journey. One of the best places to do that on Obsidian Portal is right here. This is our all campaigns section. So you go up to the campaigns. Oh, let me get this out of the way, by the way, so you can see a little bit better. Hang on. Web address, fade. There we go. So this here is our campaigns, all campaigns. So you go up to your little campaigns tab in the upper center section of your toolbar here. You go to the drop down, hit all campaigns, and then it'll bring up all of our. It's got our campaigns of the month. And then it's got a selection of the regular campaigns, which you can sort by popularity. You can sort by game system, if you're looking for a particular game system, looking for players, all that kind of stuff. So if you just go to, let's say, last updated, which is where I found all my inspirations for the day. You scroll down. These are campaigns of the month, by the way, if you want to look at those. Those are our exemplary featured campaigns where people put a lot of work into customization. Made them really cool. So if you want some really cool ideas there, but you can find lots and lots. Ooh, here's a neat one. This is one that was just updated recently. So these little banners here, which some of them you will notice are maps, and some of them are other things. So if you don't have a campaign banner on your campaign, it will often OP will look for another image to put up for you, and it'll put up one of your maps. So if you're looking for some quick map ideas, you can scroll through. Here's a handful through here. Here's one here. Pirates of Drinax. Looks kind of cool. So let's open up a couple of these. I just searched through recently and found some mapspiration to get us started. This is by $5 Words, Pirates of Drinax. Let's check out some maps. And they've got a little map. Looks like a published map out of something. It'll pull up here. And then, yeah, you get your maps, which are zoomable. We have 5 levels of zoom. This is a good hex map. Good for space exploration, West Marches campaigns, and stuff like that. Gives you more options of directions to go, and looks a little different than your standard grid maps. You got their planets and their hyperspace lanes, whatever they call it in this particular game system. So there's some examples there. Some other examples that I found earlier is The Pillar of Heaven by Jeffrey B42. Let's check out some of Pillar of Heaven's maps. But basically, maps for me are sort of good if you want to get a quick impression of a game system. These are all hand-drawn. So these are really cool. Let's open up a couple of these guys. You can see some cool hand-drawn maps. I prefer hand-drawn when I'm doing my own campaigns. But you can use whatever you want, really. So there's an up-close view of our little ship there. And then here's the hand. These are really good, actually. Hand-drawn mountains and hills, little forests and things. Excellent work. It's on some graph paper, it looks like. Makes it easy to measure. Got a little battlefield icon or something, some sort of conflict happening, crossed swords. So it's kind of neat. There's other ones going also. We've got, let's see what this one is. Fairhaven to Zarkandaria. Ooh, Dragon Mountain. I love the little symbols and stuff too. So it's a good example of some iconography that you can use in your maps. Just representative stuff. He's got all of his towns and cities. Looks like a fortified town, big castle, maybe a capital, Fairhaven there. It's the main city of the campaign. So very cool. Got some other ones. Let's take a quick peek. Nice way to do that. And you see they sort of follow the grid a little bit, but it's not, you know, one of those where you have to follow exactly on a grid if you don't want to. A couple others here. Very nice. I like your mountains. Mountains and hills, always a good place to start when you're map making. A little coastline. I think this is an expanded view of what we were looking at maybe earlier. You're being slow today. There we go. Some of these, when you have a really detailed map, it takes just a second to pull up if you haven't pulled it up before. Pass of the Dragon. That's pretty cool. I like that one. It's a little bit of elevation stuff going on in there. But yeah, so I usually flip through different campaigns when I'm kind of got some writer's block and I need something. This is by James Elcombe. Solania. Then we'll pull that. Yeah, we got some hex maps here. Ooh, that one looks pretty neat. I won't go through all of these. I'll just give you a little sample real fast. But on this one, it's very simple. Just colored hexes. It represents different terrain types for a continent. We've got little markers and we've got little number designators for different things. Whatever you need there. That's kind of cool. And then they've got a little flow chart here. Might open that one up and take a look for underground routes. Some of that you can make maps in pretty much any kind of software that you want. You can hand draw them and scan them in. This looks like it's a little flowchart program that they did for. That's cool. It's good. Bone Cathedral. It's a good way to plot out your adventures if you need a visual aid for that. Here's another campaign, Shadow of the Demon Lord, by the Retromancer. And then we've got Nintir Vale Guild of Adventurers by Energetic Scarab. That's a great name. I love that name. And then we've got a futuristic one, D20 Future Codex Galactica by Galero. Pull up some of these maps. So here's Shadow of the Demon Lords. This is a good example of where they're using a fog of war. So they have a map, they put a layer of gray fog over top of it, and then as the adventures continue, they go through and erase that layer and then update their map. Probably game session to game session is my guess. So you can see more of what's underneath. That's a good way to do any kind of exploration campaign. Here's one with some color coding. I won't go all the way into this, but you get the general idea of if you've got sort of a black and white map and you want to highlight things, you put another layer on top of it, stick some color on there, put a legend on the side, and there you go. Got your different things. This one looks like it's territorial based on what lives there. So maybe as they clear out some spiders, I think spiders are, no wait, oh, kobolds. Oh, sorry, kobolds. If you clear out this light blue area, then you have either defeated the kobolds or forced them out of the region, and you clear off that little section. Or make friends with kobolds, as we do on our channel. And then this one's a space map. Another good example of another thing you can do with maps. Territorial control, it looks like on this one. That's kind of cool. So those are some online inspirations. Like I said, go to campaigns, go down to all campaigns. These are just ones that I found in literally like 5 minutes of searching. It's first things that came up, and there are tons and tons. So if you ever need maps to look at and or borrow, as long as it's for entertainment purposes, feel free to do so on Obsidian Portal. Good spot for inspiration, and then you can look for other adventure ideas elsewhere in the campaigns. Alright, other inspirations you could check out. WASD20, or WASD20, on YouTube is fairly popular person to check out if you want some videos on drawing maps. He's got a bunch of stuff on creating adventure stuff. That's a good one to check out. WASD20 on YouTube. You can search him. We've got a cool drawing maps digitally thing. We'll just do a quick overview of he's using, looks like Photoshop or something along those lines. And then he creates some pretty cool stuff. But you can check him out for some tutorial kind of things. If you need some extra inspiration, here's another one where he's using he drops random beans and then uses that to outline continents. Some little cool tricks and stuff like that. So WASD20 on YouTube if you want to check out something like that. Another place that you can get some tips on maps on our blog, Words in the Dark. Let me put the link for this into the chat just to make it easy. But the official Obsidian Portal blog, Words in the Dark, if you, at the end of the .com, if you do /tag/ and then whatever tag term that you think is appropriate, you can search for articles and things that we have on maps. So we have, here's an article I did on one of the monthly subscription boxes, and they send you little maps. Here's a side quest, free side quest for low-level adventures with a map included. Here's a thing about making your battle maps being restricted, an article about being restricted by the size of your board or dry erase board or whatever, and how it's easy to fix. And then here's a good one from back in March. This is our tips on how to use OP maps. Gives you an overview if you're unfamiliar with it. There's also some help topics in our help section about maps and how to upload and things like that. And then these two are bigger articles from the beginning of the year, and they were online resources for maps and mapping software and freebie maps, where to find freebies, and different communities that revolve around map making and that sort of thing. So you can check those out. Those are bigger ones. I've got oodles and oodles of links if you need more. So go check out our blog if you want that kind of stuff. So that's where we're getting inspired from. Finished with you. Let's go back to our maps, what we have so far. And we've got our kingdom map, which will eventually need some refinement because we drew it very quickly in paint.net. We have our Paradise City, our town map, which was randomly generated from whatabout.io. We have a previous episode on how that works. You can check that out. And we did an overlay of that map so that we could make our Hidden Temple of the Muses, which is an underground, underneath the city, low-level dungeon. We had a couple episodes on roughing that out and then going back in and cleaning it up. There's a little video from a few weeks ago on Thanksgiving that we did. So we need a new map. We need our region map. So let's get into, let me bring up my paint program. You can use whatever sort of paint program that you like. I'm using paint.net because it's free and very easy and beginner friendly and good for this particular application. But you can certainly use one of the shop programs, Paint Shop Pro, Photoshop, GIMP, whatever floats your boat. There's lots of map making programs, Incarnate, things like that. But we're going to use something easy and accessible for everybody and just show you the basics of how I'm going to do a region map. So, okay. So what we got here is our kingdom map. I've taken a little section out of the center part here. You may not be able to see that very well on your screen. I just use my square selection tool. If you hold the shift key, you can force your selection tool to be a perfect square. I copied it with Control C on a Mac. I think that's Command C. I think it's very similar. I have a PC though. And then we're going to go over to our other map here, and I basically made a layer and copy pasted the selection from the other one onto this map here. This is 1000 by 1000 pixels, and then I turned down the opacity, which is the transparency, so that we got a little, basically a little light box effect kind of thing, so I can draw over top of it. I also have my hexes that I made from If you were here last week, we made hexes for various applications, and I got that so we have a nice hex grid. So basically we're going to draw over top of this, but underneath our hex grid to make our region map. So for those of you in the chat, if you can, if you think of a good musical pun for a region name, something like Graceland or something, whatever, feel free to put it in the chat. And we will name our area. The town here is Paradise City, and the kingdom that they are in is the Kingdom of Calliope. But let's go ahead and get drawing. I'm going to go down to my base terrain layer here. We're going to draw our stuff. So we need some outlines of the coast and the lake and the rivers, and then we'll put in some landmarks. Let's zoom in and start drawing. And then while we're drawing, we're going to think about, I'm using a brush pen tool here. Try about 4 pixels and see what that looks like. But while we're drawing, we're going to think about the kinds of things that our players might encounter while they're out exploring the wilderness outside of town. I'm just going with a wiggly coastline here. There are plenty of, if you're not artistically inclined, there are plenty of applications online that will draw your maps for you. You can check out one of those articles that I mentioned. It has lots of resources in that regard about such things. When we're finished with this, we will get rid of our semi-opaque layer, and we'll be left with our hex grid overlay and our little drawing that we've made. So this is where we're starting with our starter town, Paradise City, and they'll be branching out from there. So they're already restricted somewhat in that there is a sea next to them. There's a coastal town. And we're going to be having them going inland, so they're already slightly limited. Rivers are curvier than coastlines, smoother than coastlines in general. Because they have not as much wave action smashing them around. And they also deposit lots of gunk and mud. Let's do smooth rivers. So they're already somewhat limited in where they can go. In terms of overland, we're not going to have them go too far. Let's talk about scale very quickly. I don't have a scale for this map yet. I think you should do your scale kind of as you go. Don't lock yourself in right away if you don't have to. But basically, I was thinking each one of these hexes is probably either maybe a half a day's travel if you're going straight across, or if you're exploring it, maybe a whole day to explore the whole thing. Keep it nice and simple. That way, if they say we want to take a look around this hex, we're willing to spend a whole day, then you can say, great, you can get everything that's in this hex I can tell you about now. So we're going to do our lake. This is a large lake. It's going to be a little bit bumpier, although again, there's not as much wave action. So it won't be quite as jagged as, say, a rocky cliff would be. These little brown lumpy things are hills, and they were supposed to be. So we'll make a better icon for hills. I'll show you a couple of tricks that I use to save time. Mostly copy paste tricks. So if you're doing a region map, you don't have to put every single little detail from your region in there. You just need the highlights. Remember last week we made a random encounter hex flower, which is a different way to visualize a random table. So we made that so they will still encounter some things that aren't on your map necessarily. So you don't have to fill it all the way in. Also, you don't want your map to be too cluttered when you're looking at it, because then, yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, there's our outlines of land versus water. Yeah, you don't want it to be too cluttered, or you'll get lost visually. All right, let's make our hills. So this section in here is going to be our hilly area. We're going to follow the inspiration from one of the maps that we looked at just recently. Do some nice little hills like that. So let's see if I can grab this. What I'm doing is using my magic wand tool to select it based on its color value. I'm Control-C to copy, and then we're going to paste some more of these and move them around. You can rotate. If you go up to around the corner, there will be a little curvy arrow arc. So you can rotate so that they're not all exactly identical. And of course, remember that your hex grid will be visible. We may change it a little bit, make it a little more opaque, but it will be visible, so whatever kind of images that you're putting down will be blocked somewhat by the hex. There we go. We don't need tons and tons of these, but we do need enough to be representative of hills. Okay, I'm going to take one and shrink it a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to grab the corner, hold Shift, and just squish it down a bit. And I'm going to Control-C to copy it, so I can Control-V to paste. And now we have some slight variation. So different kinds of terrains you can think about doing. Deserts are very easy, because you can just make a big section of yellow or a sandy color. Any kind of water features, of course, can be just a big blue splotch. You don't have to get too crazy with that. Mountains and hills, you need some sort of visual representation, since those get in the way of travel. Forests can be a little fiddly, depending on if you want to indicate what kind of trees are present, if you want to, you could do all kinds of stuff. You could put snow on top of pine trees. You can get really detailed with some of the stuff if you want to. For our purposes, we're not going to go too crazy. We're just going to, oops, down a bit. Just going to sort of fill in kind of what we have already. Alright, let's do a couple even smaller ones. If you don't hold Shift, you can change the ratio from width and height too, so if you need to squish it, don't forget to copy though. Copy, paste. Put a couple of squished ones in here. This gives you a little visual interest. And you may want to leave a couple of sort of empty spaces for later on if you want to put some kind of landmark or something. It's not a bad idea to leave some holes. Basic geography lesson. Mountains are often surrounded by hills, which are often surrounded by rolling and flatlands. As you get closer and closer to the coasts, you will likely have more flatlands, but not always. You can do some serious studying on how continents are formed if you really wanted to get into that level of detail. I think in a fantasy type of world, you don't need to do too much. Even kind of randomness will generate its own sort of logic in a way. Like you may not put something intentionally somewhere, but you can sometimes come up with a reason for why it's there after the fact. Okay, let's back out and see what that looks like. There we go. So there's our hills. Let me turn this off so you can see a little more plainly. Turn the hex off. So that's what we've got so far. That's not too bad. And we've got a couple spaces if we want to put, say, a little village or something in there. That's the general idea. Okay, let's turn these back on and fill in some of our other bits and pieces. So this big red dot up here was a location of note, something of interest, like a special monument or a shrine or a magical location. So we need to indicate that on our map. We got to figure out what it is, though. Don't know. Let's see. We said these were maybe half a day's journey. So if you're starting in the starter town, here in the coast, move 2 hexes is a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. That's not too bad. So we could make this something interesting that they can get to that might be useful for later on. Because remember, you're going to be using this for your levels basically 1 through 5 and maybe then some. So let's think about that. Let's keep that in mind. Something they can get to within 5 days. If they're going to get there, they're going to need a bridge and a road. Doesn't have to go right there, of course, but... So yeah, let's go ahead and put in Paradise City. That's our sort of landmark. So I'm going to draw it with my line tool. And we need just something representative of a walled town. Doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to be zoomed out a bit. But we do need to put it right up next to the coast because that's where it is. And then we're going to have some farmlands around it. So let's put in... actually, we can save ourselves a step. And use our rectangle tool to make walls and towers. Obviously, in most maps, things are not always exactly to scale. but we do not have to be perfect. In fact, if you're going for a medieval style map, things were definitely not to perspective. Everything's a little bit skewed in an old style map. Iconography, you are allowed to sort of do whatever you like. Potential region name from a site about musical terminology. Andante, Italian for walking. And music should be played at a walking pace, not too fast, just slow. That's perfect. That's great. Andante. Okay, that's what we're calling it. That's pretty cool. Oh yeah, we don't actually have a wall next to the coast. We do have a fortress, though. Let's draw a little fortress. So you can get as detailed as you want with this, but keep in mind that we're going to be zoomed out a bit most of the time. People are not going to see all the little details. So really, the amount of work you want to do is dependent entirely upon how much time you have. Okay, so now we need some little, let's erase this little section here. Put in a gate. Again, I do not go for perfection. You can spend a lot more time on this than I would. Alright, let's do some little triangles to represent the roofs of houses. And when you back up, you get the general impression of a walled town. We can color that in a little bit later. I also want to indicate that this is a port, so I think that we'll put a little ship outside. Again, the level of detail does not have to be fantastic for iconography. Here's our little sailing vessel, and we can put some of the docks in if we want. It's the kind of information that would be useful at a glance to someone looking at a map. Alright, so there's our starter town, Paradise City. Let's do, I think we need some forested areas too before we start planning other civilization. So let's do some quickie forests. For me, you could draw individual trees, that's all well and good. That's not really my favorite thing to do for a zoomed out region. So for our Andante region, I think that we will do I'm going to do a little bit different. What I'm going to do is just kind of draw in some rough shapes, and then we'll color them in. Now keep in mind, with a big town in a medieval setting, they may have exhausted the majority of their forest nearby, because you are dealing with a society that is primarily powered by firewood. There we go. Now let's pick a good dark green. That's not bad. Maybe we can do a little bit. Yeah, that's good for now. We can change that if we need to. So a small town might still have a decent amount of forest up next to it or around it, surrounding it, but oh, sorry, technical difficulty. Are you getting a little slow? Is that what's going on? Yeah, I can see it on my monitor. Okay. Apologies for the for any delays that you may be having. I blame Twitch, but you know, whatever. So the forested area generally will be cleared out by a bigger town. In some places, with lots of people, they will completely deforest sections. If you look at the Highlands of Scotland, for an example, probably had lots of forests at one point, and then it's mostly moors and windswept, treeless plains now. So hopefully the feed will get a little bit quicker for those of you experiencing any issues. Let's do a couple more forested regions. I think down here looks good. Again, I'm not really following the hexes in terms of strict borders. I'm just using it as a reference for how much of an area a person could explore in the course of a day. And then we'll fill that in. Nope. There we go. I have a tolerance bar up the top on pig.net. If you raise and lower that, it will adjust the tolerance of whatever the tool it is that you're using. So for a paint fill bucket, it will look at like how much of a gap can I fill in, and how much should I let it bleed out, the color bleed out. Okay, that's not bad. Got a couple nearby forests to explore. Let's make this upper area a little woodsy. I think this will be a little more wild up in this section. Fill that in. And maybe over here, a little something on the side for woods. Now there's two different kinds of woods in civilized areas. There's overgrown, unkempt, untended forest where people don't mess with it, grows wild. And then there's also managed wood, which is people use it for resources. So they go in for firewood, they hunt game, they clear trails, they use it for woodworking materials for different projects. So you could delineate when you're making your maps and make two different kinds if you wanted to. These are all just random. Not really thinking about it. If you wanted to, you could do streams. You could mark out some of the different streams. Might be worthwhile. I think that's probably good for our woodsy areas for now. So let's do some streams. Streams, water sources flow from high to low. So let's pick out a nice blue color. And we'll draw in some cool streams. Nope, I need bigger than that. Let's go up to a 4. So here we have streams that are coming from our little hilly region and dumping on one side into the sea and on the other side into the lake area. There would of course be lots of little streams also coming off of these, but these will be the major ones. There we go. Do another little one here. And let's see, maybe a couple in this vicinity. In the real world, there's lots and lots of water and streams. We don't see it as much in our day-to-day lives because we've covered over a lot of it with asphalt and concrete. But there's tons and tons of water in most places. Alright, that's pretty good for now. Let's have a little one here. Alright, I think that's sufficient for our purposes. Alright, let's think about where civilization would crop up beyond our starter town. You're probably going to have some smaller villages in the medieval setting or Renaissance setting. If you can get to it in about a day, people don't like to travel more than a day or so before they get to another village or some kind of an outpost. So this is a fairly civilized area, so we're going to have things relatively close. Remember, 2 hexes is a day's worth of travel. So to get from the coast in one day, you would be going 2 hexes distant. So we'll have a couple of small villages within that rough radius. I think we put one here, and I think we're going to use something very basic for our villages. I'm actually going to do a new layer and draw it in with my shape tool. So essentially for a village, let's make this a little smaller. Let's squat little buildings, nothing fancy. 4 is probably good. And then we'll draw some little roofs. on top, and then we'll clean it up. Just going in and using the eraser tool. And put a couple of dots to represent windows and doors. And then when you zoom out, yep, that's about what we want. Alright, because I've put this in its own separate layer, I'm going to select it, Control C to copy it, and then we're going to find places to put more villages. So 2 hexes in this direction. It's not a lot over here, but we could put maybe something. Also consider that they'll probably want fresh water, so we might go beyond our 1 day's travel and stick another village up here. If I can find where to put it. Oh, here it is. So let's put this guy here. I think I'll make him a little smaller too. And then probably not too much. Maybe one more over here. Actually, that might be a better spot for a fortress somewhere along this vicinity. Because you could watch better. Okay, let's keep that in mind. We'll put a fortress over there for later. Down here's a nice ripe area. I think maybe here at the crux of the rivers we could put a couple of villages. So let's do one here, and then I think maybe a twin on the other side. And nothing to the south for now. And then up here, about 2 hexes away, a little closer to 3, I think we'll put one more. Yeah, right in here. That's not bad. Okay, so we get a couple villages. Let's do our military installations. So on our main map, this is where we are, zoomed in. This little outcropping, this, what's called Peninsula, would be a good military outpost for sort of patrolling and watching this section of the sea. So that's not too bad there. So I think we'll do that. So let's go in here, and then we need something to represent just a castle on its own, I think. So oh wait, it must be selected somewhere. There we go. Let's put that there. like so. And then give it a little roof. These can be our military style forts. We'll come back in with the line tool. Give ourselves gates and a couple of arrow loops. Let's slide it down maybe a pixel. That's pretty good there. Okay, so you have a nice military style fort, or fortress, or castle, whatever it ends up being. And then I think we need another fortification, maybe down here, to watch the entrance of this particular area. So, Control V, paste it. And then put it right there. Okay, now we can decide where our roads go. Let's find a nice, let's see, what, we gotta think about some colors here too. I think just a brown would be alright. Let's go with a brownish color. And we're going to draw, let's just freehand draw some roads in. Oh wait, wrong tool. Here we go. Roads in general will follow whatever natural landmarks you happen to have as best they can. We'll leave a little space right there and we'll come back and put a bridge in. So this road's going to follow the coast and then come up. If I remember, I'm just going to check my Paradise City map real quick, make sure we don't have any weird roads coming in. Yeah, we have a road coming in from the south and one coming in from the east. Let me get back here. Okay. Road from the south. Then we have one coming in from the east. Let's back out. I think the east will split off and go to these different spots there. So zoom in a bit. If you're getting any ideas about things that you want in your travels, be sure and note them down while you're making your maps. Here's that one. And I think the crossroads would be somewhere people are not going to want to waste a lot of time. So if you have people journeying, like they do what's called a desire path. You don't necessarily take the path that's provided. You take the easiest path for yourself. But when you're talking about medieval roads, it's whoever is paying to upkeep the road, they get to make the decisions. So it's a combination of the two. So a desire path, like this village going to this village, they would want to do like a coastal trail. So we'll probably put a trail in there. but the main road is probably financed by the taxes of Paradise City, and therefore they get to make the decisions. So they're going to not care about maintaining a road over that direction. They're going to only maintain the roads that connect to themselves. So we're going to put our crossroads right about here, and they're going to take as roughly direct a route as they can to this other village. Alright, the military takes precedence over pretty much everybody else. So we're going to have probably another little split right in here. It's this one up to the edge of these woods. And if you don't like freehand, there's definitely lots of tools you can use. You can use a straight line tool and then bend it. So we're going to come back in a little bit and put in our bridges and our trails. I think trails, generally speaking, are designated as dotted lines on most maps. I think we'll follow that same general idea. And then this one's going to be a smaller village, so we'll probably have some trails that lead off to that and not a full road. And these guys would ferry across a river to reach each other, and up here they would probably have, let's go ahead and give them a regular road. Maybe these are slightly better off villages and they can finance their own road work. Okay. And then our special site, we haven't decided what that's going to be yet. I'm thinking maybe it's something ancient and lost, so there probably wouldn't be a road to it necessarily, unless it had been overgrown and covered up. Okay, so let's do our bridges and trails. I think a bridge sounds like a nice dark brown structure to me. Let's actually I'm just using the rectangle tool. It's an outline with a filled. It's a shape with an outline and fill. So then you rotate it as necessary. Make a bridge. Make it a little smaller. Don't want to make it too small, otherwise you can't tell what it is. Alright, let's look for some other bridges. Here's one here. Bridges are handy things to have in your gamer toolbox as a GM, because they're good waypoints, crossroads, places to stop, places where you would meet NPCs, etc., etc. Is that all of our bridges? Nope, one more. Okay. Let's double check. I didn't cross any streams over here. And then major bridges, something over a big wide river. We could definitely do that here. So let's make that happen. We'll make it nice and narrow. Let's actually make it a stone bridge. I'm just going to change the color on it. So this one would be kind of a major project for a kingdom to do a big stone bridge over a wide river. We would have some town building up on either side of it. There's that. And then our trails. Now for the trails, we definitely need probably one to get to here. And then maybe some other desire paths leading to different places. So let's go back to our other color that we were using. And I'm going to use my line tool. And up at the top here there is a line style drop down, and I'm using the dotted line style. I'll show you what it is. So it gives you one of these basically. So for this one, I need to put in some curves. I'm going to do small sections so that I can give it more bumps. Giving it more bumps will make it look more like my hand-drawn roads. I'm just sort of replicating the style we've already established. Okay, so we've got our trail leading from this castle to that town. They probably trade with them or something. They don't want to do the long loop around if they don't have to, so they dug themselves a little sort of spot. Now here they probably will work their way up to a natural ford in the stream instead of building a bridge. Would be my particular way of doing it. It's whatever the laziest way is, people will usually do that way. So this is a good amount of territory for people to explore at low levels. Okay, not bad. Probably need the rest of whatever this road is. I'm just going to follow along from here. Put that in now. And let's go ahead and do our... Oops. Oh, take it off the dotted line. Go back to solid. Okay, there's that. Back to our line tool. And I think we've got a couple more trails we need to do. These guys, for example, might put a trail cutting straight across to save time. Oh, need our dotted line again. And then up here. Got that. Gets them down to the road pretty quickly. I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, that's good for roads. Let's put our special site up here now. I'm thinking maybe some kind of cool ruins. I think we'll just stick it right up here. This looks like a good area for ruins. So I'm going to do some... Let's do some more rectangles. I'm using grays for these, by the way, but they won't show up correctly because this is in the way. So let's dump this. There it is. Do some representations of what ruins should be. That's not too bad. Let's tighten it up just a bit. And then we'll grab the whole thing with my lasso select tool. Move it where we need it. And then I'm just going to put some little dots around to indicate debris. I think we can have maybe some green overgrowth. Not bad. Okay. Let's knock off the hex grid too. Alright, so this is our sort of line map with roughly everything we need in there. So now we need some, probably some muted colors for our background to make it stand out a bit. So let's do let me get down to base terrain. Let's fill some stuff in here. Let's see what looks good. Here's some water. We could alter the color. It's not too bad. And then yeah, that's not bad there either. I don't want to do like a grass color necessarily. That's too much. I'm just going to go through and look for spots that got missed or that need additional bits and pieces. I think that's pretty good. Alright, we can add a little bit of coloration to our villages and stuff. Probably not too much. Let's see what a white would look like. Oh, it's not what I want. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer, that's why. Okay, I'm going to use my tolerance bar again. Drop it down a bit so it's not completely ruining all my little details. And you can always go in with like a pencil tool or something and fill in individual pixels if you need to. Let's back out and take a look. Yeah, that's not too bad. Alright, let's go in and do a little bit more. And then we can call this map finished. So for this one, I'm going to use a bucket fill tool, but I'm going to line my edges a little bit so it doesn't bleed over. And then too much. Probably on the wrong layer. Yep, that's what it was. It was on the wrong layer. Oh, we can. Here's a little spot. Fill those in. Alright, let's fill in our castle. Not bad. Really, if you wanted to, you could have all of these colors picked out and finalized before you started copy pasting images, then you wouldn't have to do all these little extra steps, but we don't make mistakes. It's all happy accidents. Sure, world, do what you want. Okay, a couple more and then we're finished. And there we go. Alright, so zoomed out, it'll look roughly like this, which isn't too shabby. We can add to it later on if we want to. I might add a little bit of color to these hills, just to make that section slightly more interesting. So I guess the best way to do this at this point, I'm going to make a new layer on top of the one that's currently there. I'm going to pick out, let's do kind of an opaque orangish color. You won't be able to see my modal windows on the side because OBS doesn't support that, but I'm basically lowering the opacity of a color so that I can draw kind of pale stuff on top of here. Let's see if this works. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to get right over top of these edges here. Actually, I need to back out. Hold on 1 second. Back it up. I'm going to do it all in one swoop if I can. It doesn't matter if you go over the edges because we're going to go back and clean that up. Okay, now you just want to fill in the rest. And as long as you continue to hold down and don't release your mouse button, it'll be the same stroke and it won't layer multiple opaque, semi-opaque layers on top of one another, so you won't end up with like a weird stripe or something in the middle. Okay, so that's my one. Now we're going to go in and clean up the edges up close and personal. Get my eraser tool, crank it down to about a 4, and crank the hardness up a little bit also. That'll make the edges a little sharper. You can go in and erase some of this stuff. On paint.net you might need more than one swipe to get it all, depending on how much color you've put down. But again, a lot of this detail will disappear when you zoom out, so it's up to you how much of a perfectionist you want to be versus how much time you have to spend on a fun hobby. And for most people, there is a limited window, so you have to make some choices, cut some corners. That's okay, your players will forgive you. They will occasionally bring it up and bash you, but not often. I mean, thanks. So we're going to be using this region map for a while. We can update it as we need to. One thing that you may want to do is save multiple copies, especially if you have multiple layers going. You may want to save copies with different layers so that you can go back and fix things easier over time. I often forget to do so and find myself in situations where I wish I had saved but didn't. And have to redo a good bit of work, so learn from my error. For example, if I had saved all of this stuff in very different layers, then this particular part of the process would be a little bit quicker too, but oh well. Not too bad. Go back and clean up my river. Looking on the edges for other bits and pieces. So I think next year, if I get some Christmas money, may look into some map making software too. Maybe we can do a little demo of map making software, because there's some cool stuff out there. But it's one of those things you have to learn the program a little bit. I have to try that out. But if anybody has any requests for map making software that they would like to see, feel free to let me know. I would love to eventually. My dream game room includes a large gaming table with a TV or a large monitor built into the center of it that you can open up when you need digital assistance. And if we wanted to do digital maps, that would be a really nice little extra tool making digital maps. And I foresee in the future, if I can make that happen, that would be pretty cool. But there's a lot of people that have made animated sailing ship kind of things. That's, I mean, sign me up. That sounds great. Some of the maps I've seen, they do a night version and a day version. They do different seasons. You can go kind of crazy with it. Let's get a slightly bigger brush. Apologies again if you're buffering. And notice on mine I occasionally do, I don't know if that's my connection or Twitch or what's going on, but okay. Cleanup mostly complete. Let me do one more pass over this river. Make it pop just a bit more. There we go. Now our hills look like a separate piece of terrain. Not bad. You can kind of tell what everything is. Okay. Let's crunch our layers down. I no longer need this kingdom layer. It's kind of a cool effect, but I no longer need that one, so I'm going to get rid of that layer by deleting layer. I'm going to keep my hex grid, but I think we need to lighten it up a little bit. So on the hex grid layer, I'm going to select all, and then I think you can do it from maybe saturation, lightness. No, maybe it's not. Maybe it's layer properties. Yeah, opacity. Okay, I'm going to lower the opacity of the entire layer and try and get this hex down to something where it almost fades away into the background. You almost can't tell that it's even there. I'm looking for something in between 50 and 100. I think we're gonna split the difference. Okay, that's 75, so let's go a little bit lower than that even. Let's try about 65. That's not bad. Maybe just a hair lower. Okay. Yeah, you can tell where the hexes are there. That's not too shabby. Alright, and that's our map for now. So let me save a version of this with the layers expanded. And then I'm going to crunch the layers down. We're merging layers, I think it's called. Control M in this program, but I think other programs have different names. And then we will save a version of this as, come here, as a PNG. Maybe we can do a JPEG. Let's do a JPEG. See how that looks. Looks pretty good. It's also slightly smaller. Alright, so now we have a JPEG. Let's go upload it. Let me get out of paint.net. Zip. We're back in our maps on OP. And let's add a new map. To add a new map, there's a nice big button. New map. And what do we call this? Andante. The region of, sorry, spell it correctly, Andante. It is a public map. Click here to upload. And then maps, region map JPEG, open, and submit. And there it is. It'll take it a few minutes to for the site to tile it so that you can zoom. It's basically making copies and zooming and making copies and so on and so forth, so that it becomes easy. But once that's done, then it's ready to use. So we can take a look at it in a minute. Okay, so we've done our little kingdom. We've done the starter region of that kingdom. We're right in this vicinity here. We've got one of our special locations. So in theory, they can reach here roughly in 5 days. So this is their little area that they can get to within 5 days. About a week would be a little bit beyond that. And then they can get pretty much anywhere in about a month, give or take. If this is a 5-day region, then that's 5, 10, 15, 20. So pretty much anywhere in our kingdom in about a month or less, which isn't too bad. Alright, let's go see if we're tiled yet. Yep, it's being processed. It'll give you a little indicator here. Your map is being processed. So it'll take it a few minutes, but we'll come back to that. Let's go talk about what's going to be in our adventure, in our travel. Actually, I'll go to the front page where we have the outline. In Adventure 1, as you'll recall, 2 tickets to paradise. It's our level 1 starter adventure. Party arrives in Paradise City where they're drawn into a small dungeon, a noble woman's intrigue, and a battle of bands. They've met some NPCs, they've gotten some magical stuff, they've been hooked on the meta plot, We've got all that going on. Part 2, Adventure 2, is Journey, which we also thought of Departure, Wheel in the Sky, and Still They Ride. This is levels around 2 to 3 that they start. We'll get them up a level or so during the course of the adventure. The party leaves town and discovers something amazing in the clouds. So let's work on that while we wait to check out our map. Here's what we've got so far. Act 1, Chapter 1, Adventure 2, Wheel in the Sky. So I was thinking about it. The Wheel in the Sky, I think, is going to be a flying fortress from the ancient past that is a bit out of control. It's also the source and the reason why Paradise City has big walls. Whatever comes down from this thing to wreak havoc needs to be stopped, and the Mayor Petty Tom, is going to approach the group. We made our Hex Flower last week. If you weren't here, this is what that looks like. You're basically rolling randomly with 2d6 to move in different directions. You land on something, and you roll randomly to see what you get for your random encounter. Stuff at the bottom, you tend to roll more of. You'll be here more often than you are up here at the top, so the special rare stuff is up here, like the big monsters and the big treasure. All the common stuff is down here at the bottom. So that's for our random rolls when they're out wandering around. But we need to write what Mayor Petty Tom is going to do. So let's go into our edit section. This little pen and paper thing here in the upper left-hand corner. And we're writing in textile. You can look up references for textiles, basically shorthand. You can also do some HTML in here. All right, we have our outline. We're going to start with right around here. Let's go ahead while we're making notes anyway. And out of control flying fortress. Okay, so our part 1 is Mayor Petty Tom. And I think we're going to call this section On the Road Again. So let's see here. Let's give ourselves a heading. Heading 4. Part 1. On the road again. Okay. In this section, the mayor will approach the group after they have been successful in their previous adventure and say, "Hey, I need your help." Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay. We'll do our text block in a little bit, but I want to think about where the mayor would find them. Maybe back at the inn, maybe back at the Heartbreak. So, yeah, let me open up our previous adventure to see. Yeah, so here's the text block that we want. Let's see, we had this underlined too. Yeah, but to do a text block, I'll just show you real fast. In textile, go down here. It's a block quote, and then you end it with another block quote. I have styled mine to look different as a shadow box and cool things like that. You can do that if you have the CSS enabled with an Ascendant account. And all that's in my notes here, which you can go access. So basically we need this little thing, and then whatever we put inside here becomes that little text block doohickey. So let's see, I'm going to underline this. I think underlines are pluses, if I remember right. And then block quote slash block quote. And then whatever you put in here has that styling on it. So this is text that we will read as the DM to the players. So I think the beginning of this adventure, maybe they're back at the Heartbreak. The Heartbreak Inn. Has a few patrons this evening. Who are busily catching up and recounting the exciting events of a few nights ago. None of the stories are especially accurate, but they are entertaining. The innkeeper, Priscilla. You can put character links in here. We've made some of these characters Priscilla, for example. If you wanted a character link right in this particular section, you would hit this character link button. You could search for her by tag or by whatever name, and then click insert. It inserts the code that you need. Anything in this that's highlighted right here is the name that will appear. Over here is the slug. You don't want to change that. That's what links to that particular page where she is. So the innkeeper Priscilla is smiling as she serves tray after tray of cheap but filling meals. Your group's platter, of course, is on the house. As in Adventure 1, the deal was, help me clear these rats out of my cellar, and you get to stay and eat here for free. So that's why they're here. Okay. Alright, from here we need the mayor to show up. So figure in a top hat and wool coat. Strides through the front doors. And all the citizens of you can do a wiki link here if you like. Paradise City. All the citizens of Paradise City salute him with a toast. It is... Here he is, Mayor Petty Tom. Mayor Petty Tom. Greets them warmly with a politician's wave of the hand. His eyes then search the room. Common room, and land on you. He walks forward, hat in hand. Okay. So this is the point where the mayor is going to introduce the next adventure. He's got a problem and he needs help. He's seen these guys and girls and whatever at work rescuing the heroine of the previous adventure, getting her out of a bad situation, and now he is aware that they are just the people he needs. So to do colored text, we want to give him any of the speech stuff that he is saying out loud. I'm putting it in different colors. For him, I think we will do... Let's do blue, I suppose. Let's do red. Okay, so for colored text and textile, you do a percentile sign, curly brackets, color, colon, red, for example. You can use other stuff too. Curly brackets, and then whatever you want the text to say. I'm putting mine in quotes. And then to end that particular string, you close it with a percentile. And then that, hopefully, if I've done it correctly, will appear as colored text. I think I can italicize it too with underlines. Yeah. Underscore, sorry. Technical jargon. That's what we're really here for. It's not the fun. It's not the, here's how you write an adventure. It's the technical jargon. Watch me stumble through my words. Alright, what is Mayor Petty Tom going to say? Friends. I saw how helpful you were. The other night to that poor girl. Well, I've been looking for a way to get her out of that bad marriage for a while now. I just couldn't make it happen. But you folks sure could and did. For that, I thank you. Not just as mayor, but on behalf of the whole mess of folks. We've had it up to here. with. And at this point, he's going to get a little cagey as he realizes other people are listening. So, character link. I'm going to change his text from default to the mayor. Suddenly realizes that he's in a room full of listeners. And he leans in, starts whispering the rest. And then once again, we'll just copy paste our little section here. The church. Okay. So at this point, he will introduce his the rest of his problem and try and get them involved. I was wondering if I could sit with y'all. Share a drink or two. Talk about a bit of trouble. Paradise City is not quite living up to its name these days. And to be perfectly honest, I'm concerned about its safety. Okay. Generally, when I'm writing adventures, I give myself a text prompt to start a conversation, and then after that, I just make it up based on what the players respond with. So I think that's pretty good. We've given them a couple paragraphs to start with. Let's save it and see if I've formatted everything correctly. Save. Alright, and then here's what it will look like when you are going on. So we've got our outline at the top. We've got our part 1. I think I need to make that a little bit bigger. So it stands out. Maybe bold it. Here's the bit that you read out loud. Then here's the bit that the mayor says out loud. And then we've got links to our different characters and locations if we need them. Oh, I did do Priscilla incorrectly. So let's go back and fix that. Probably have a space where I don't need one, or something along those lines. Let's find out. Let's just take it out. Start over. Innkeeper. Priscilla. No, still doing it wrong. check out your character page. We've got the slug. So this is the character page that you will go to if you click on one of these links. We'll leave it up for now. I'll fix it later. One of my goals over the holiday break is to go back in and do a little cleanup work on some of the notes. I tend to take sloppy notes. I should show you some of my notebooks sometimes, my paper notebooks. It's rough. Okay, let's save. No, no, it's still not for this one. Maybe it's just whatever the first one is in a block quote. Probably my CSS is messing with the normal features, so we'll just take it out. Technically, you don't need it in your block quotes anyway. It's just the stuff that you're reading. There we go. See if I caught them all. I am not a CSS pro, so occasionally I do run into an issue like that. If you want to see a CSS pro, it's a cascading style sheet, by the way, for those who don't know, you can check out our other show, which is Getting Started with Style. Cadillac runs that on Tuesday nights. I think he's got one more before the holiday break. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, GMT -5. If you want an expert on that, and eventually I think we're going to have some cool tutorial videos and stuff like that to get you going. Okay, this is a pretty good start for today. We've got the beginnings. Let's plot out a little bit more of our adventure 2, because it's easier to do a little brainstorming and outlining before we start writing the bulk of it. Okay, so the mayor approaches the group with a mission. What's the mission going to be? So I think we've got the wheel in the sky, which is a flying fortress of some kinds. It's been hidden. It's out of control. No one's running the ship. It has some kind of automated defenses. I'm thinking maybe it drops in, I don't know, like clockwork golems or something interesting like that as an attack method. And it's happened before, and the mayor is worried that it's going to happen again. Maybe they found one. That would be kind of cool. So the mayor approaches a group with a mission to investigate a broken weapon. That fell through the roof of a farmhouse. Okay, so he's going to approach them. Will you investigate this thing for me? In return, I can give you something. So I'll have to come up with some reward for them. So if they're interested in the octave scale keys that we mentioned from the previous adventure, he can help them maybe retrieve one. Maybe he has one. Otherwise, he might have a little bit of other resources to work with, something they might want. But he's the mayor, so he can help them get all kinds of stuff. The group will journey outside of the city as part 2. and explore. At the farmhouse, they find clues to a mystery that leads to a castle in the sky, which is the wheel in the sky. And then that's part 4. They find the wheel in the sky, the flying fortress that's out of control, that's eventually going to drop down destruction and mayhem onto Paradise City if it gets too close. So I'm thinking the wheel in the sky is it's floating magically. It's not been piloted. They have to figure out a way to get up there to it. And then I think that's pretty good. One thing that we do want to keep in mind for writing the rest of Adventure 2 is one of our characters, one of our player characters. If you'll recall, we made our 6 archetypes of different kinds of players that we think will be participating in our game. Actor, Explorer, Power Gamer, Escapist, Noob, and World Builder. And we need to give the World Builder something to do. So Wanda World Builder, we're going to give her some options in this particular adventure now that she's outside of town. And we'll have access to some extra resources. We wanted to give her the ability to make something of her own creation. So either a small airship, or perhaps something out here that she can use to build a base, something that's hers and that is useful in some way to the game so that she can participate in the way that she likes. That's the one character archetype that we haven't really given a lot to do yet because we were railroading in Adventure 1 to get them where we need them to be. Now they're exploring, they're spreading out, so it's a little bit better for her. She can go in different places. We also need to address the idea that the players may not go wherever you want them to go, and how are you going to do that? So we've been going for a couple hours. This is a pretty good spot to break. We will come back next time. Oh yeah, I did want to look at our map, see if our map is... Forgot about it. The region of Andante. So here's our cool map with the hexes and everything. So if you zoom all the way out, you get a general idea of what the region's all about. You zoom in one time and you can see some of the details. You can tell what most of these things are. You get an idea of the hexes. This is good for planning out. Let's say we want to go, what can we get to in 1 day's worth of travel? Maybe here, you get partway on the road, you can get to this little village, 1, 2, you can get to this village, you can get most of them, you can get to this bridge, you get sail on a certain number of hexes, whatever. Maybe they'll take a boat, maybe they'll skip it and go around and do something else, who knows. But anyway, somewhere in our region is going to be where this thing crashed. We're going to put them out there so that they can explore a little bit and have fun. So we'll need some details about what's in all of these locations, who they're going to meet, and we need to leave it open-ended enough that we can use those later on for future adventures too. So that's pretty good for this week. Next time we'll come back. I've got one more before the holiday break next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we will be writing more of Adventure 2. We'll try and get as far through that as we possibly can and get some good low-level adventure material and stuff like that taken care of. But that's about it. Thanks for those of you who joined us today. Hopefully we see you next week also. Don't forget, Tuesday is Getting Started with Style with Kalak. 10 p.m. Eastern Time, GMT -5. Holidays coming up. So the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's we will not be broadcasting as far as I know. So you'll have to settle for watching some of our hosted streams, which are also good. And with the holidays, don't forget, you can do gift subscriptions, gift an Ascendant membership to Obsidian Portal to your favorite GM. And it's a pretty cool little thing to do for somebody who's in need of some digital note-keeping type of stuff. It's a good one. So thanks for being here. Appreciate your support. And we will see you next time on Live for Your Deck Art.